Unit 4, Day 5. Today's lesson is about CBAD, putting it all together. So throughout this unit, we have learned how to shift things horizontally, left and right. And remember, it went opposite. So if it said plus, we moved left. If it said minus, we moved right. So that's right here. Those are your horizontal shifts. Okay, so those were opposite signs. And then we went and talked about, okay, shifting it up and down vertically. That was day 1. Day 2, what does it look like if it's a reflection over the x-axis? There's a negative on the outside. Okay, a reflection over the y-axis, your negative is inside the parentheses. That was day 2. Day 3, we talked about vertical dilation. So we said if there is this number that is greater than 1 outside of the function, we knew it was a vertical stretch. If there's a number on the outside that was between 0 and 1, that's called a vertical compression, okay? So vertical values have to deal with, vertical dilations are with y values only. So you would be either multiplying or dividing that number on the outside for the stretch of the compression to the y values only. And then day 4 was the horizontal dilations. Kind of like shifting it left and right, whatever's inside the parentheses is opposite. So they say if you have k is greater than 1 and it's on the inside, it's a horizontal compression. So for example, if that was a 2, let's say 2 inside, you're not going to multiply by 2, you're going to divide by that k, okay? If it's a fraction, we normally think you'd be dividing, but it's opposite, it's inside, so you would be multiplying by that factor of k, okay? And notice how they describe the horizontal stretch by k. It's not going to, like if k was 2, they're not going to say it's a horizontal stretch by a half. They're going to say it's a horizontal stretch by 2. So it's that denominator that you describe the stretch by. So now CBAD is just kind of putting everything in order here. So notice the placement of the letters. A's in front, here's B, C, D. And then these right here have to be memorized. These go through and just describe everything. So again, day 1 we did horizontal shifts left and right. And then we also did vertical shifts up and down. That's your C and your D. Day 2 was, well, what if there's a negative on the outside? It's a reflection over the x-axis. Or what if there's a negative in that B spot? It's a reflection over the y-axis. We also talked about, well, if the A on the outside was a number, that's your vertical stretches and compressions, which is going to be your A. Okay, that's your vertical stretches and compressions. Inside the parentheses would be your horizontal stretches and compressions, which is line B. Okay, so the best way to just go through these is to actually do some examples here, and you're going to see what I do here. Okay, so you have a quadratic, so you know you're going to have something squared. Now it's shifted 4 to the right. 4 to the right means you need the opposite sign, so it's x minus 4. Okay, that would shift it right 4 units. So you know it's not choices 1, you know it's not choices 3 because it has to be x minus 4. Okay, horizontal stretch by 3. Horizontal means it has to be inside the parentheses, okay? It's going to be inside the parentheses, and because it's a stretch, it's a fraction. So if you forget, you can kind of just go back up top, and right here, and these have to be memorized, guys. It says horizontal stretch. You know it's a fraction, and it's inside the parentheses. So now when they say by 3, that means 1/3. Okay, so now I know it's not choice 2 because that's a 3 and it's on the outside. This is a 1/3 and it's on the inside. So there's my 1/3. Okay, it says there's a reflection over the x-axis, which will just throw a negative out front. But then it's shifted down 2, which would be minus 2, and it's going to be choice 4. Okay? The more practice, the better you'll be. Example 21, match the equations listed below to the graph shown. All right, so what I do is I go through and I say that this is right 2, up 2. Choice B is right 1, down 4. Choice C, left 2, because it's opposite right there on inside the parentheses, and then up 2. And D would be left 3, down 2. So now when I look at all these graphs, and again, guys, look, these are the coordinates of its vertex right there. Because it's right, it's positive 2, there's 2, 2. So the only one that has a vertex at 2, 2 is position 1. So there's your first graph there, A. Okay? Part B says write 1, again, positive 1, negative 4. So here's my B. Okay? This one, left 2, so that's negative 2, up 2. So negative 2, positive 2. There's my C graph. Left 2 would be negative 3. Down 2 is negative 2. There's my D graph. Okay? If for some reason you couldn't figure that out, you could just open up a graphing calculator page, put this equation in there, and then it would have one of those 4 pictures and you just match it up. Example 22. Describe the composition of transformations in the appropriate order. So they're talking about the CBAD that's new today, performed on the absolute value of x to get this. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to write this out a little bit bigger so you guys can see it a little more clear. And what you're going to see is I'm going to label A, B, C, D. So this is my A, right here. Right here is my B. This is my C. This is my D. So A, B, C, D working left to right. Now I'm going to write out CBAD. C, B, A, D. So now, when I go and match this up with C, this means I have to do this first. And that's my horizontal shifts. And because it says -5, that is a horizontal shift right 5. Okay, so that would move it over right 5. Then B would come next. Now B is normally your reflection over the y-axis or your horizontal stretches and compressions. It's 1, which means nothing's really happening to it. So B's really not there. They're not doing any of those. A's got 2 things going on. The negative symbol means there's a reflection over the x-axis, and the 2 is outside, so that is a vertical stretch. How do I know it's a stretch? Because that number is greater than 1, and then I write by 2. So it's a vertical stretch by 2. Last but not least, I have D. D is my vertical shifts. So D is a vertical shift up 2. Okay, so again, you must memorize each of these parts. Last example here, example 23, consider the function y equals f of x. So here's my f of x graph. Okay, what is the domain and the range? So now remember, domain means I'm reading from left to right, and you're giving me the x values. So I'm going from -1 to +3. So if I were to do it in set notation, it's going to be -1 less than or equal to x less than or equal to 3. If you're doing it in interval notation, it'd be -1, 3. Okay, so this is set notation, this is interval. All right, now the range is how high and low, the y values. So my range is going from -2 up to +4. So it's -2 less than or equal to y less than or equal to 4. That's set notation. Or -2, 4. Okay? Is the function 1-to-1 y? Now remember, in order for it to be a 1-to-1, it has to pass your horizontal line test. Well, it passes the vertical. Therefore, it just makes it a function. But now it has to pass the horizontal line test to make it a 1-to-1 function. And yes. Okay, so I'm going to write yes, it passes the horizontal line test. So I know it's 1-to-1. Find f of 1. Remember, that is the x value. So you go over to where x is 1, you're just going to come up, and it's 3. So f of 1 is equal to 3. And don't forget, guys, this represents the coordinate 1, 3. Okay. Find x such that f of x is equal to 4. Well, this really means y equals 4. So if you go graph that line on the graph here, 1, 2, 3, 4. Here's the line y equals 4, and it wants to know, well, what is its x coordinate? So you just come down and it's at 3. So you know x has to be 3. Okay, why? Because f of 3 gives you that 4. Okay, so this is all review. None of that is new. None of this is the transformations. But now when you guys look at part E, it says a new function is defined by the formula negative f of x minus 1 in parentheses plus 2. So if I go to apply my CBAD to that, okay, here's my A, there's my B, here's my C, here's my D. I write out CBAD because it wants it in appropriate order. And the C would come first, which means negative 1. That is a horizontal shift right 1. Okay? Next, the B's inside. That's your reflection over your Y's, which it's not there because it's not negative. And there's no horizontal stretches or compressions because there's no numbers greater than 1 there. Okay? So there's no B. A, I only have that negative sign, so that's a reflection over the X. And then D says I'm going to make a vertical shift up 2. So I shift once to the right, flip it over the x-axis, and then up 2. So right 1 over the x, up 2. Part F says now sketch that graph and call it h of x. Okay? So now, look at this point right here. I have to move that right 1, flip it over the x-axis, and then go up 2. There's that point. Okay? So again, if you miss that, it says right 1, flip over the x, up 2. So I'll go back again. Follow the eraser. Right 1, right 1, flipped over the x-axis, up 2. Good thing I double-checked that. Okay, now this one, ready? Right 1, flip it over the x-axis, up 2. So I can connect those right there. This last point, right 1, flip it over the x-axis, up 2. There's my h of x. So that entire graph was shifted right 1, reflected over the x-axis, and then moved up 2.